Hey chatters, we're back here figuring out how the heck to code things. So we've gone over GitHub already, and this is going to be literally the repository for where you keep your code. It's really important to have that set up and be comfortable with that because you'll be using it a lot. Next up, we got to start thinking about where are we going to code and what are we going to code with. Typically, you're going to have some sort of editor that you use for your coding to keep everything organized and whatever. It's essentially like your folder system. I use VS Code. It's one of the more popular ones. There are others. This is the only one I know how to use. So we're going to use this one. It has tons of options and helpful things for you. So what you're going to want to do to start is you're going to want to go to code.visualstudio.com/download. And then whatever system you have, you're going to want to hit download to get that going. We're going to need to download a few other things before we get started. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to head into VS Code to just mess around and get an idea for the navigation. So the next thing we want to do is there's a bajillion different coding languages, but there's two in particular I would recommend getting started with, / the only two that I really know how to use, which are Python and JavaScript. So first let's head over to Python. So we'll just Google download Python and go to download Python. Should bring you to this page. You're going to download it right here. Let's actually go through the process. I think I already have it saved. So I'm actually going to walk you through how to download this one because you need to click a button. And if you don't click that button, you're going to have a bad time. I learned that the hard way. So when you open it up, you should see something like this. It's very important that you do add python.exe to path. And I would even do use admin privileges to install. Okay, so we're going to hit install now. Shouldn't take too long. Now, Python is a very popular language. It's primarily used by researchers and data analysts, but it's very versatile. You can do a lot with it. And it's the primary language that's used right now in terms of machine learning and creating these large language models and tuning them and everything like that. So it's a really important one to have if you're into this kind of stuff. The second language that we're going to focus on is JavaScript, not to be confused with Java, which is a completely different language. I don't know what they were thinking. And in particular, JavaScript is usually used for web applications, but there's something called Node.js, which is essentially just the way you can play with this thing kind of in the terminal on your computer and make applications. When you Google it, you'll see I already have kind of two things here ready to go. You want to go to the pre-built installer. This is going to actually bring it to you where you can use it. And then you just want to make sure you have the latest thing and you have the right thing clicked here. If it doesn't work, just try another one. And then you just want to download it. Nothing special here. You just download this one and it'll probably ask if you want to get chocolatey. You can download that too. Just go through the process and get it on your computer. The last thing we want to install is something called Git Bash. This is to help us with the pushing and pulling and all that stuff from GitHub. You're going to want to go to this git/scm.com/downloads. And similarly, just download this for whatever system you have. It might bring up the terminal, the little hacker coding prompt thingy that you might see, and do some things. So just go through that process. It's pretty straightforward. And then once you have everything, we can actually go ahead and start up VS Code. Let's go do that. Here we go. Here's VS Code, and just like GitHub, you're probably looking at this. I don't know what to do. Where do I even start? What am I doing here? I was like so confused when I first started using this. I'm like, oh, this should be easy. I'll just use the thing and do the work. No, unfortunately, takes some getting around. You gotta chart the territory. When you first open a new window, you're going to see something like this. Often you're going to be doing one of these two things, either open a folder or clone a GitHub repository. This is what I was talking about in the previous video, where you're going to find repositories that you really like, or you're just going to be cloning your own repositories because you want to work with them on your own computer. And then opening a folder, this is where you're going to be hosting your code. So we'll go over to do that in another video. How to get stuff off of GitHub and get it into here to work with. But for right now, we're just going to navigate this interface so you understand how to use it. So First off, when you have your normal like taskbar here, the only two that you're really going to be using up here are file. And again, this is if you need to open a folder, if you want to save something. You are going to want to make sure that autosave is on. So if we go to settings, you should see something like this, hopefully. And this should be right up here, control autosave. You can choose whatever you want. I just do after delay. So it just automatically saves in. You're going to want to make sure you do that, so you don't lose anything or don't have to manually save things. Remember, you can always roll things back. Okay, next up, we got this sidebar. You're going to be using this one a lot more than this one, probably. First is you have your file explorer. This is where you're going to actually see all the files. Think of it like a folder system, or if you've been using Obsidian with me, it's the same thing like the file explorer there. You just have folders in your files in there. Next, we have our search. You know what search is. This thing is GitHub. You'll see here, I'm already logged in. You're going to have to log into your GitHub and do all the security stuff. But this is where, again, you might want to clone a repository, open folder, and this is where you're going to be the pulling and pushing and committing and all that kind of stuff when you actually get into the coding part. Debug mode, you're not really going to be using, don't worry about it. But the next thing is extensions, and there's a few extensions you're going to want to get right off the bat. First of all, you're definitely, and it'll ask you typically, let's say Python, you're probably going to want to get Python here and put that in. There might be some Node.js things you want. You might want to get this one, even if I don't have it, but you might want to look around. So think of this as just like the app store for VS Code is more or less what it is. And so you'll see that a lot of things that you use to help you code actually have these plugins, these extensions that can help you out. But we're not really going to do much in here now, aside from the Python one. It'll typically, again, ask you if you're downloading things or using things, if you want to download the extension. And then as you download extensions, you're going to see them start to show up on the sidebar here as well. So that's how you'll actually use the extensions once you got them. Okay, the last thing that we're going to do before we wrap up is talk about the terminal. So the terminal is pretty much where the coding happens, right? Where you can run the programs and do the thing. So if I go to command prompt, it brings up this scary little screen here about, I'm going to hack the system, whatever it might be. There's also PowerShell if you're on a Windows and Xcode if you're on a Mac. Sorry guys, I don't have a Mac, so I can't show you that, but it's pretty much the same idea. And this is where you're going to be writing the code, but this is difficult because if I want to run the code in the folder and the thing, you have to do some coding essentially to get there. The idea of something like VS Code is to have it all in one place and make it as easy as possible. So if we go up here to terminal, we can do new terminal, and you're going to see this thing pop up, and the terminal's right there. Now, we're not coding yet, so this won't make as much sense as once we get to the coding, but pretty much what this is going to do, it's going to open up right away the folder that you're in the terminal, and then whenever you do things like installing packages and libraries and whatever you might be doing, you can do it all in here and it'll just add it to your folder system instead of you have to go back and forth with things and change things and get to the right folder using text and whatever. So this is where the magic is going to happen once we get to the actual coding aspect. But for now, that's all you really need to know in terms of how to navigate. Just as a quick reminder of how to navigate this thing, when you first open, you're going to see something like this. You're probably either going to be cloning a repository or opening the folder where your code resides. You have your sidebar here with your file explorer, search, GitHub, and your extensions. And then you open up the terminal to actually run the code and do the things once you have the code written. So thanks for listening, chatters. Play around in here a little bit. Just get used to navigating. We're not coding anything yet. You just want to get comfortable with the interface before we do anything, because otherwise, as we move forward, you might get a little lost in how we're doing things. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.